I can usually tell a high note is going to go badly about a second before the singer gets there. There's a bracing that happens first, and then the neck starts to crane, pushing up and forward, like over straightening, and sometimes tilting off to one side. And by the time the note arrives, your throat is already closed. And here's the thing, the note itself didn't cause that. The anticipation and effort did. So my name is Joseph Arnold. I'm a professional violinist, a certified Alexander technique teacher, and the author of Soulforce. As an Alexander technique teacher, I've worked with a lot of singers. And by the end of this video, you're going to learn why your throat closes before you even reach the note. A 2-second experiment you can do right now with Happy Birthday, of all things. And that's going to make the high notes feel noticeably easier. And why the fix is going to feel wrong at first, which is the single biggest reason singers give up on it. So before we go any further, I want to know, when do you get the tightest when you're singing? On the high notes, on really long sustained notes, on fast runs? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone, and it's genuinely different for different people. All right, when a singer comes to me with a tight throat, the first thing I do is just have them sing something so I can watch. And what I see over and over is that the tension isn't really about the note. It's about their approach to the note. The bracing starts first, and then the neck extends. And this is the part that people don't really realize that they're doing. They crane upwards or force length into their neck, or they push their larynx up, or even their shoulders and ribs. They're sort of steering the pitch muscularly, reaching for it, as if the note lives somewhere up there, and you have to go, grab it somehow. So the next thing I ask in a lesson is what they noticed while they were singing. And usually they tell me about the discomfort, or they tell me they were focused on their breath, or some piece of vocal mechanics. And so if they haven't mentioned the high notes themselves, I ask them when they get the tightest. And it's generally there at those high notes or those low notes. Not always, and plenty of singers say the long notes or the difficult runs or whatever, but for singers who steer with the neck and the throat, the high note is usually the big one, and it's close to universal. And by the way, the same thing happens on low notes for most singers too, but today we'll focus on high notes. So the next thing I have them do is to sing it again, the same piece, but this time I ask them to notice one thing. Are you getting tighter or freer as you go up to that note? Almost everyone notices they're getting tighter. And that noticing matters more than it sounds like it does. You can't interrupt a habit that you can't feel and that you're not aware of. So now here's something that I catch myself doing, and maybe you do the same thing. If you remember just a minute ago, I said reaching for a high note. I used that word reaching. So listen to that word. Reaching implies effort and distance and something up there that has to be, gotten, high, low, reach, support. These words aren't necessarily neutral. They are instructions, and your body follows them. Your neck cranes because you told it there was somewhere to go. Of course, your voice doesn't work that way. The vocal cords are horizontal, and it has to do with vibration and not, location. So let's do something about that. And I want you to actually do this and not just watch me talk about it. So sing Happy Birthday out loud wherever you are, especially if you're in a crowded room. So, that octave leap right at the end on Happy Birthday, dear so-and-so. Okay, that jump from happy to birthday is the biggest interval in the song, and it's a good place to practice noticing this because most people brace for it. So sing it once in your normal way, nothing special, and notice what your neck does on that leap. Happy birthday. So now sing it again, but this time, when you get to happy, right before the leap, stop, just pause. 2 or 3 seconds is usually enough. Don't take a bigger breath. Don't set anything up. Just wait until you feel your anticipatory tension let go, and then sing birthday. So like this. Happy birthday. Right? So I taught this to a chorus at Lebanon Valley College in Pennsylvania a couple years ago. There's a whole room, We did that same exact exercise, and watching them, I saw, I felt, I heard the difference immediately. It was very palpable. Everybody flowed. Nobody was craning their neck. It just came out of them. And what the students said afterwards was that they thought they all sounded clearer, and that hitting the high notes felt more effortless. No reaching was necessary. And one more thing they noticed, which comes up a lot and always surprises people, it got easier to hear themselves and each other. When you stop tensing, your senses actually get clearer. And that's a real side effect, a very positive one, and nobody expects it. So why does 3 seconds of nothing lead to all of this? Because of what fills the space. Okay, so you pause and then you hear the sound you actually want. You actually audiate it right inside your mind before you make it. Your voice is not led by mechanics, it's led by audiation. It's the intention for the sound that organizes your body. When you have a clear inner sense of the sound you want, your body arranges itself to produce it, and it does that far better than your conscious management and control ever could. When you don't have that, when you instead have a list of mechanical tasks and a braced neck, it gets to be too much for your individual nervous system to handle, too many balls to juggle, and so you end up getting stressed out and tight. Whereas if you hear the sound that you want and simply wait, your body orchestrates the movements necessary in the background, under the surface of your conscious awareness. All right, so this pause isn't actually empty. It's the gap where the intention gets to take over from the habit. All right, so there's a reason that this pause can be hard for some people, and it isn't a technical one. So a lot of singers carry a secret fear. Will any sound come out at all when I open my mouth? And there are a lot of reasons that you might have this fear, but I think a big part of it comes from being admonished for speaking or singing or saying something when you were younger. This happens to many of us, and those experiences are really painful, and they become the seeds for later hang-ups around speaking and singing. So then later in life, when you're in high-pressure situations, even if you don't think you have all that many hang-ups, if you're in a high-pressure situation where you're focused on getting it right and not making mistakes, those fears come to the surface and you tighten up as a part of your fight, flight, or freeze response. And evolutionarily speaking, if you're in that freeze response, it makes sense not to actually speak because that's what would attract the attention of a predator. So this can be what's sort of happening underneath the surface behind that fear of not making a sound. And here's the antidote to that fear. Your body knows how to make a sound. You're born knowing. Babies cry without any technique whatsoever, and they cry loudly and clearly. Children sing constantly, unless somebody admonishes them not to, and they do it loudly and clearly, with no fear and no hesitation. So the same was true for you, I have no doubt, and that's still within you. Which means that the real problem isn't your voice. It's all the interference you put on top of it. And so this is where the pause comes in. It clears the space so that your body can sing in its natural way. But tapping into this asks something big of you. You have to stop managing your voice and trust that the sound will be there. Right? This can be hard for people who are used to controlling everything. So the good news is that capacity didn't leave you, the capacity for clear sound. It just got covered over. So yes, it's a leap of faith, again, particularly if you're somebody who's used to controlling everything, but control only seems like the thing that guarantees success. In practice, it interferes with it because of all the tension that control can bring along with it. So this brings me to the part that trips up almost everyone. All right, so first of all, I'm not telling you to throw out your vocal technique. Open your throat, support from the diaphragm, soften your palate, aim your air here or there. All those things are fine. And they're true enough as far as it goes. So keep doing them. But the problem is that each one of those things becomes another task to accomplish. If you stack enough of them, then singing turns into something that feels really complicated and constrained. When for a 2-year-old, it's the simplest thing in the world. Even if you're singing opera, it should feel very, very simple. So once you've actually learned a technique, your biggest job is to get out of the way so your body can do that technique on its own. Charlie Parker, the great jazz saxophonist, said, first you need to learn the music, and then you need to forget it. This is what he was talking about. So here's the trap. When you do that, it will not feel like you're doing the technique anymore, because the technique got wrapped up with the feeling of tension, and that's what you're used to. This is how you learned to sing, and so the singing and the tension have gotten fused. So when the tension goes, it feels like the technique went with it, and then people panic, and then they go back, right? So this is really critical. So I'm going to say it really plainly. People go for the feeling that is familiar rather than the ease that they actually need. Ease is not the same thing as wrong. It's just that you get so used to over-efforting that ease stops feeling right. So stop trying to sing in a way that feels right and start singing in a way that feels easy. So now, this is the singer's version of something I see in every musician I work with. Violinists brace before the bow touches the string. Pianists tighten before their hands reach the keys. The same mechanism, different body part. So if you play something other than singing, the pause works exactly the same way. Just find the hard thing and pause just before it. So singers usually come to me after the exercises and the specialists haven't fixed it. You've learned all the techniques and you're still getting tight on those high notes. So most voice teachers I've encountered, they have some awareness of this, of course, but they don't have really much of a toolkit for effortlessness. And that's the part I offer. I teach over 20 effortlessness tools that help you be at ease in whatever musical challenge that you're facing. So if your throat keeps closing on high notes, no matter what techniques you've tried, there's a link below for description. There's a link in the description below to book a 15-minute call with me, a free call, no pressure, no sales pitch. You can just tell me your story, and I'll see how I can help. I also teach a monthly musicians tension reset lab where we work on exactly these kinds of things. And I'll give a little lesson, and then I work with several people one-on-one in front of the group so you can have your questions answered. And the link for that is below as well. It happens the third Saturday of every month, and that's free. So go try the happy birthday exploration. Pause before the happy birthday, right? So you hear the note in that pause and just see what happens. Notice what happens with your singing. Do you feel tighter or freer? Does your sound improve or not? Is there more resonance in your body, or is it more localized? Now, these are the kinds of things that you can notice. Okay, and then let me know what actually happens. Send me an email, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. All right, see you next time.